Just a couple of days ago, Netflix dropped the animated feature Ultraman Rising, which is essentially an Americanized spin on the Japanese icon. Ever since he first appeared on TV screens in 1966, the gigantic hero has remained a fan favorite in every sense of the word. Thus, it was only a matter of time before Netflix decided to put its own spin on the character, and to be honest, we were pleasantly surprised. Though the film is still a far cry from the endlessly charming original, it does manage to tell a pretty unique story that feels more suitable to the modern era. So, in this marvelous video, we'll be taking a thorough look at everything that transpired in Ultraman Rising. However, before we dive into the details, please take a moment to hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. It might just be a small click for you, but to us it means an awful lot. A new Ultraman! The Ultraman franchise undoubtedly has a long and storied history, to say the least. It's been running for almost 60 years, and at this point, it's spawned an almost endless number of spin-offs, mangas, cartoons, and films. Thus, it can actually get pretty confusing to keep track of all the Ultramen who have taken up the mantle throughout the years. But don't worry, we're here to make it easier. Now, the first thing to keep in mind is that Ultraman Rising is a standalone story that doesn't fit directly into any of the continuities. Despite this, the film retains most of the core characteristics that we identify with Ultraman, including kaijus and energy beams. This Japanese-American co-production between Netflix Animation and Subaria Productions is the 44th film in the Ultraman franchise and is helmed by Shannon Tyndall. The film is screening on Netflix right now, and if you're an Ultraman fan, you should go check it out because there's going to be a ton of heavy spoilers ahead. The film started its journey as an original idea developed by Shannon Tyndall with the same lead character, Ken. He began working on it in the mid-2000s, back when the director was still working at Sony Pictures. After Tyndall jumped ship to Netflix Animation, he found the chase to repurpose his idea to fit the Ultraman IP. Netflix first announced the project back in 2021, but it took almost 3 years to complete. The visual and character design was inspired by several Japanese manga and Spider-Verse films. The film employs a 2D aesthetic that is aligned with the computer animation style, often utilizing 3D models during the large set pieces. The vibrant color palette will undoubtedly attract a lot of younger viewers to the series, but the heart of this saga definitely lies in its story. Though the film primarily deals with gigantic monsters and battles, it still manages to feel extremely human throughout its runtime. It deals with themes of parenting, loss, and responsibility, all revolving around our hero, Ken Sato. So, I guess for us to explore this film, we'd first have to ask one pivotal question. Where does Ken come from? There have been quite a few Ultramen over the course of this vast franchise. However, Ken Sato still manages to stand out amongst his predecessors due to one simple fact. He doesn't really want to be a hero. Fans of the series will definitely recognize Ken's last name, Sato, as Ken's father, Professor Sato, is one of the most respected Ultramen in the whole franchise. Ken was born to the professor and his wife Emiko, while the former was still active in his role as Ultraman, which caused the kid to grow up idolizing the hero. However, due to the constant kaiju battles, Ken and his mother moved to Los Angeles, while Professor Sato remained in Tokyo to take care of the monsters attacking the city. This separation must have been unbearable for the young Kenji, who was pretty close to his father. Needless to say, he also inherited the professor's powers after some years, but while living in America, Kenji grew up to become a pretty good baseball player and was already an international star by the time his true responsibilities came calling. Now, being the estranged son of one of the world's greatest defenders must be pretty difficult in and of itself, but being called upon to become that hero yourself is even more impossible. So, when Kenji returns to his home country after his father suffers an injury, the youngster is woefully underprepared for what awaits him. As we'll soon see, it takes much more to be a hero than just some superpowers and a giant fist. The hero's journey. From the very beginning, the film makes it clear that his story is about finding balance. It starts off with a seemingly gentle moment as Ken and his parents are kidding about in their living room. This is a flashback, but even at an early age, we can see Ken exhibit a clear interest in both baseball and Ultraman. However, the calm of their family home is shattered when alarms go off and the professor is called off to fight a kaiju. As a terrified Kenji looks on, his father transforms into the humongous superhero and rushes off to fight the kaiju in the distance. As the title rolls, we all know that this Ultraman tale is going to be about family. The film skips ahead and we meet an adult Kenji on his way to a press conference. Clearly, the younger Sato had chosen baseball as his profession, and by all means, he's pretty darn good at it. We see how he draws admiration from the onlookers and his fans, but there's one particular reporter who manages to get under his skin. This character, named Ami Wakita, seems particularly interested in why a star player like Kenji would suddenly leave his home team and move to Japan. Well, Kenji manages to brush off her questions, and even there, we see that Kenji is kind of an arrogant jerk. He's overconfident enough to believe that he's the only good player on his team, and even dismisses his coach when the guy reprimands him. Well, being a baseball player is only one facet of Kenji's persona, as he is also serving as the new Ultraman. We see that Kenji decided to move to Japan only after his father suffered an injury that stopped him from serving as Ultraman. In the professor's absence, a reluctant Kenji has been forced to take up the mantle, and we will soon get a chance to see him in action. In a pretty funny scene, the inexperienced Kenji tries to contain a kaiju that easily overpowers him. Not only is Kenji extremely inefficient as Ultraman, but he also fails to draw the kaiju away from the populated regions. He almost comes to the brink of losing this battle, but is saved just in time by the Kaiju Defense Force. The KDF is a paramilitary organization that exists to save humanity from kaiju attacks. The KDF manages to stop the kaiju, and Kenji sneaks off at this moment despite protests from his father and the AI assistant Mina. This is the first time we see Kenji's reluctance to take up his duties, and to be honest, it's kind of a shocker considering how heroic Ken's predecessors were. This is also where we first begin to grasp the KDF's dark motivations. From the very beginning of the film, Professor Sato maintains that the kaiju are not a malicious force. Instead, they're agents of nature. However, the KDF sees the monsters as a true menace to society, and frankly, that actually is a pretty complex conundrum for children's cartoons. The KDF is headed by the mysterious and ruthless Dr. Ondo, who wants to rid the planet of kaiju at any cost. During one of the missions where the KDF is transporting a mysterious orb, the shipment is attacked by Gigantron, who swats all the aircraft down like flies. Well, things get more heated when Kenji's big baseball event is interrupted by this attack. Though Kenji has been trying to avoid his duties as Ultraman all this while, the kaiju attack calls him to action. Kenji soon realizes that Gigantron is way more powerful than him, but just as things are getting worse, the KDF shows up. Gigantron tries to escape with the orb, but a swarm of KDF agents fall upon them. Mina reminds Ultraman that Gigantron needs to be saved from the KDF, and Ultraman joins the chase. He tries to stop the KDF agents from killing the kaiju, but Ondo is unrelenting. In a vicious aerial attack, he shoots down both Gigantron and Ultraman, knocking the duo into the ocean. Unfortunately, the kaiju doesn't survive this encounter and succumbs to the enemy fire. But with his dying breath, Gigantron bequeaths the mysterious metal orb to Kenji, who discovers that the orb is actually the kaiju's egg. Wary of the KDF's intentions, Kenji is forced to carry the egg to his secret lair, where it hatches to reveal a baby kaiju. The pink, scaly, bird-like creature with reptilian fins is named Emmy. Contrary to all expectations, the baby monster is one of the cutest creatures we've ever seen, even though she's the size of a small truck. As the film progresses, we see Ken struggle against the responsibilities of being a star, a hero, and a father. For a very long time, he has no clue what to do in this peculiar scenario and begins indulging in his self-sabotaging behavior, such as picking fights during his matches. Also, he hides Emmy's existence from the professor, leading him to believe that the last of Gigantron's kind has been slaughtered by the KDF. Things get pretty uneasy for our hero, but over time, he manages to strike up a genuine bond with the infant kaiju. Emmy takes a liking to Ken, and though there are some problems, the two begin to get along like a true father and daughter pairing, despite the difference in size. Kenji also gets some help from reporter Wakita, who, as a single mother, is able to offer clueless Ken quite a bit. One evening, Ken goes off on a date with Wakita when Emmy suffers from a pretty intense acid reflux attack. The reflux is actually so powerful that it burns a hole through the chamber in which the kaiju was being kept, allowing the infant to escape into the streets of Tokyo. Dr. Ondo and the KDF soon pick up on this and are hot on Emmy's trail. Fortunately, Ultraman is able to make it there in time, but this incident showcases that there is indeed something special about Emmy. As it turns out, Emmy possesses the power of echolocation, which she can utilize to find her way to Kaiju Island. For those unfamiliar with this strange monster utopia, Kaiju Island is a mythical land where all the kaiju live. It is this destination that Ondu is desperately chasing, as an attack on the island would allow him to take down all the kaiju in a single go. As Ondo's threat looms over Emmy, Kenji takes the infant to his father, Professor Kaiju. It takes some time for the father and son to get along. After all, the professor abruptly abandoned his son some 20 years ago, and that trauma still bears heavily upon Kenji. On top of that, Kenji's mother also disappeared tragically, leaving the youngster all alone. However, through empathy and patience, the duo are able to get through to each other and are even able to make Emmy a part of their family. These newfound connections allow Ken to deal with his past, and he soon begins to become a better person. Not only does he get better at baseball, but he's also able to hold his team together using his experience he gained with Emmy. Eventually, the trio heads off for a holiday to the family home where Ken had lived before going off to America. In a pretty emotional scene, the father and son are able to overcome their differences, and the professor even shares a few tips regarding Ultraman. The trick is finding balance, he tells his son. Meanwhile, Emmy also enters her pupa stage and enters her cocoon, which alerts the KDF members. As attackers swoop down on the family, Kenji's father takes a pretty massive hit, which leaves him severely injured. Though the KDF has failed repeatedly throughout this film, they do have an ace up their sleeve, as we'll soon see. The next morning, Emmy's cocoon begins to crack open when a gigantic figure begins to approach the heroes. Emmy pops out, and we see that she's grown 2 large wings on her back. Kenji tries to reason with her, but she seems to be strangely drawn to the dark figure. As the monster approaches, we learn that it's none other than Gigantron, who has been turned into some kind of mecha by the cunning Ondo. He plans to use Emmy's mother to manipulate the baby into leading the way to Kaiju Island. Before Kenji can even react, a surprise attack destroys his mansion, burying our heroes in the debris. When Kenji finally comes to his senses, his father is nowhere to be seen. Even his trusted assistant, Mina, has been destroyed, and this leaves him all alone among the ruins of his former home. Angry and devastated, he follows Gigantron and Emmy to intercept their path. A fierce battle ensues between Gigantron and Ultraman, during which Emmy is accidentally shot down. This further enrages the already fuming Kenji, who begins to rain down his worst attacks on Mecha Gigantron. But just as he's about to land the finishing blow, he catches a glimpse of the flesh underneath Gigantron's armor and hesitates. Ondo uses this opening to attack Kenji, and for a moment, it almost seems like all hope is lost. But Ken's dad appears out of nowhere just as he transforms back into a human, saving the kid from certain death. Meanwhile, Emmy is also to break Ondo's hold upon her mother, leading the 4 giants to come together. However, the day is far from over as Ondo realizes that the odds are now against him. He evacuates his ship and decides to end the fight with a suicide mission. The entire ship transforms into a gigantic robot that's far too powerful for any of our heroes. Well, fortunately, Ken, Professor Sato, Emmy, and Gigantron decide to work together and end up winning in a pretty spectacular action sequence that is definitely the highlight of the film. Despite all of this, the film doesn't paint Dr. Ondo as a villain. Even as he dies, all the brilliant scientist can think of is his family. He lost them in a kaiju attack, and I guess we can probably understand why he went to such great lengths to rid the world of monsters. Even though he dies, one can't deny that this was a very sympathetic villain. The film ends with a fitting last scene, where the once arrogant Kenji is being interviewed by Wakita after a successful season. The kid is no longer smug and proud, instead he's as humble as he can be, and even thanks his family for all he's accomplished. I guess that's what you call a character arc. Beyond the end! Well, after the events of the film, it's pretty natural to wonder what's next for Ultraman and Kenji. Though Ken was an original character created for the purposes of this movie, I guess we could definitely see him again in future installments. He fits pretty well into the existing Ultraman lore and even provides a very unique spin on the iconic character. As for Ultraman, all of us already know that he's going to be back to save our lives. After all, that's what heroes do. Marvelous verdict! This was actually a pretty fun watch, and we absolutely recommend you check it out, especially if you're an Ultraman fan. Though the film features stunning action and enough superhero stuff, the heart of it lies in the tender human interactions that are scattered throughout. Ultraman Rising is a tale of parenting told through the lens of a kaiju blockbuster, and we're all looking forward to this fresh new take on the iconic IP. However, let us know about your favorite parts in the comments down below, as well as what other Ultraman movies we should pick up next. That's it for this video, but thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.